wheels of war. In the Second World War, transport was a key to victory. Vehicles like these kept the armies moving. They're a part of history that is often forgotten. But more than 60 years later, the wheels are still turning. These are in the hands of a group of Australian and New Zealand enthusiasts who'll drive them 5,000 kilometres across Europe from Turkey to France. From the battlefields of Gallipoli, birthplace of the Anzac legend, to the invasion beaches of Normandy. For 2 months, they'll leave home and job behind and eventually join thousands of others for the anniversary of D-Day. This is their story.
Designing and building a Spitfire as a profession is something that's given me great pleasure. And of course, restoring the older World War II vehicles goes hand in hand with the time period.
The first time I saw a military vehicle, I was about 10 years old. Saw it under a house of a friend's place, and I had my first Jeep when I was about 15. I'm sure it has to be classed as a bona fide sickness.
I've known Mick for 52 years. We met at high school, did our first trip together around the South Island of New Zealand in 1963. Then in later years with the military vehicles, we did Alice Springs to Darwin in 1995, crossed the Gun Barrel Highway in 2005, and then of course this one this year. So we're veterans of long distance Jeep travel, I guess you could say.
I've been farming in Yass all my life, the fine wool hub of the world. I started collecting military vehicles along with my brother Max in 1970 with a Ford Blitz that we paid $35 for. We now have 21 ex-military vehicles on the property, but the old Ford Ute's my favourite.
Ready, darling?
Yes.
Well, you ready?
I've been waiting for you.
Right, away we go.
Hope this rain eases up.
Yeah, well, not much we can do about it.
All right, well, you ready to go?
Yep.
Okay.
You got your camera gear?
Got my camera gear. We heard along the grapevine that Lankidby was doing a trip through Europe, and ultimately the finish would be at D-Day in Normandy. My husband and I, we had a chat about it, and we basically booked instantly, put our name down, because we didn't want to miss this opportunity of a lifetime.
It's a big undertaking. The vehicles are 60 years old to start with. Most of them are commercial type vehicles, or military commercial type vehicles, which means they're heavy, lumbering, uncomfortable to ride in.
It was a big process getting the vehicles from Australia to Istanbul in Turkey.
The vehicles are considered heritage, so we had to get them cleared by the Heritage Department in Australia.
And we also had to get a clearance from the Australian government because we're exporting vehicles out of the country.
The vehicles had to come from New Zealand, South Australia, Perth. For some people to get onto the ship, it was hundreds of miles drive before they even started. Once the trucks were loaded into the ship, we then went back to work for a month and then flew over to Turkey.
When we were in Istanbul and we saw the containers for the first time, it was like, can't wait to open these up to see what sort of condition our vehicles are in.
Arriving at a strange country where you've never been before and not knowing what to expect, we got the total reverse to what we experienced in Australia, because we were there for a few hours. Went through the customs and quarantine and et cetera, et cetera. It was quite a saga on the other end.
We did have to get a green slip, like a third-party insurance for Turkey, because that's not part of Europe yet. So that was a little bit of a hassle getting that.
Took us a day getting insurance organised, then another day to get them off the wharf. We had them unloaded out of the containers earlier in the morning. But it wasn't until the money was produced that we were allowed to get them out of the wharf.
When they opened the containers, I thought, wow, this is it. We're on our way, you know.
We ready for the trip?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
When you've only ever driven in Australia, it seems very, very daunting. And I think there was a bit of tension in the cabs. I think there were a few arguments in the cabs about navigation. But we eventually got to our campsite, everyone got in, and they felt that they had really achieved something.
Quite a wonderful trip. Rained a lot of the way down. Lost only about 4 times. We arrived here quite late, about 8 o'clock, 8:30. And today we're off to the Gallipoli sites.
We've had an extra day here in Gallipoli, which is really excellent because to feel the spirit of the Anzacs, you need to spend the time here and just meander through the hills, take in the incredible views. The landscape is what shocked me, what the Anzacs had to do to actually survive and fight here is just, I can't comprehend it. You have to look at it.
Amazing that we're over here. Quite amazing. Very solemn. This is Lone Pine. They keep it very well here. Everything's very well looked after. When you come here, you realise just how many lives were lost at Anzac.
You can see why too. I mean, look.
This is incredible.
Just from this position.
The hard country, the fighting that went on here.
Well, look how you're exposed at this position. If a gunner was here or a sniper was here, he's got the pick. You cannot dig a trench to protect yourself from this position. And 50 metres to the left, or 50 metres to the right, down or up.
Yeah, would have been absolutely...
It's a different position.
Hellfire.
Just crazy.
Thousands lost on the first day. That's what I find just staggering. All for a bit of land here that's useless.
This is North Anzac Cove and North Beach Cemetery. What's interesting here is a lot of the grave sites actually have 1915 dates on it, which suggests, unlike yesterday, with a lot of those dates were 1918, 1919 type dates. After the First World War, they came back and found the remains and buried them, and because they didn't know what day they were killed, they put the date that they were reburied on the headstone after the war. Whereas here, there's actually June, November type dates, 1915, which is obviously the date that they were killed on.
All these people are enthusiasts. Most of them repaired their vehicles, restored their vehicles. A few people, like myself, we got a farm vehicle, squirted some paint on it and crossed our fingers and off we went.
This is a 1943 Chev truck. It was manufactured in Canada, assembled in Brisbane, Australia. It's a 15A four-wheel drive. I purchased it off a cattle station I worked on as a young lad. I drove it at a very young age. We're not sure whether it's served in the Middle East, but it's done up in the RWAF colours.
This is a 1942 WLA Harley Davidson. It was used by the MP company in South Australia and went to auction in 1956, and I bought it 6 months after that for £45.
This is a 1942 Chevrolet C15. We call them Blitzes in Australia, I'm not quite sure why. The engine in it is the original 216 Chev motor, and it still has the 4-speed crash box behind it. Pretty much everything's standard. The only thing that's really not standard is a fuel pump. They have dual fuel tanks. I like them because they're a bit ugly.
This is my 1943 Willys Jeep. I acquired it some years ago from a farmer in Mudgee, and I spent 3 years restoring it. In fact, it was a ground-up restoration. I sandblasted the whole chassis and body with a small sandblaster. I actually used 3 compressors. I burnt the 3 of them out eventually because it took so long.
Here we've got a 1941 Ford Ute. It served in Australia in the Northern Territory in the anti-tank division. The symbols on the front, the kangaroo over the boomerang, denotes it as the 6th Infantry Division from Australia, which my father served in during the Second World War. The 22 over the 56 denotes that that's the 2nd Infantry Battalion, the Australian AIF. In the Second War, they had a 2nd Infantry Division in the First War, so that's why we got the 2nd, the 2nd Infantry Battalion of the Second War.
This morning we're off to Gallipoli and then heading down towards Troy, having a look at the wooden horse. Today should be a nice leisurely day after yesterday. Yesterday was a fairly big drive. I've always wanted to see the wooden horse of Troy, and as you drive into the park, there it is, this massive horse. Karen and I climbed up inside this horse and looked down over Troy. You can sort of imagine what it would have been like for those warriors that were hidden in the horse and then embarked on their war. It was the battle that changed the world.
What we didn't know about Troy was, or I didn't know, was the fact that there's actually been 9 cities, and they've just kept on building on top of the old one and getting a bit bigger, I think. And basically what you've got there now is just a pile of rocks.
I photographed a lot of ruins at Troy just to try and give a sense of how the buildings might have been built and the streets and their daily life. I started in photography when I was probably 5, 6 or 7. My uncle got me interested in it. I thought, gee, this would be great, and he lent me all his books, and my mum and dad bought me more books, and eventually they bought me my first camera. And then through high school, I became the magazine photographer, and then I went to college for 4 years. I ended up doing a lot of travel photos, and hopefully I can bring some of my expertise to this trip and show the emotions of the veterans with the tears in their eyes, or the kids waving their flags at us as we drive by. For me, capturing human emotion is as exciting as photographing the vehicles and the campsites and the landscapes.
Just been through customs. It was reasonably easy. Checked the vehicle over. Mainly concerned about alcohol, weapons. We had none of, so we're home free.
We heard about the trip on the internet, and we decided that we'd like to have a go at it, a bit of a challenge.
We were invited to go on this exciting Anzac tour about 9 months ago.
My one concession and demand was that if we were going to be 46 nights on the road, that I was going to have a proper bed, and made sure that we had a and in a spring mattress.
I don't know why we do it. I don't know what the interest really is. It's probably the engineering. And whenever we have world wars and large wars, we seem to progress leaps and bounds in engineering and so forth. And, you know, military vehicles weren't made on the cheap then. They were the best that they could be made. Built for a purpose, built to last, and to serve the man who was driving it and the man that was riding in it well.
We're not in it for the war thing. There's no misunderstanding there. We're not, you know, going out gung-ho. It's more the vehicles, what they were quite a sturdy vehicle for their time. So I think we like to try and just prove that they're still a usable vehicle. But rather than just get in army trucks and tear through the place, we wanted to see the country and all the highlights, some of the ruins and artefacts that are in those countries.
The whole crew seems to be going very, very well today. It's the first day that we've got at least 3/4 into the camp within half an hour of each other, so it was a good run. Top spot here, Mount Olympus, and everybody's looking forward to travelling around the valleys tomorrow through all the little villages around Mount Olympus.
We just went into the cafe here. Not one of them could speak a word of English. Very strong coffee, but yeah, very friendly. Once they realised we weren't here to invade them.
I think this is the best campsite we've had on the whole trip. It's really nice. So all these trees here are 400 years old. All these olive trees. What more could you ask for than a Greek paradise like this? Tomorrow we're off to Athens and we'll be boarding the barge. It's an overnight trip to Crete, so everybody's really looking forward to getting to Crete.
At the port, and we're a few hours early because we had to get out of the campsite early, but everyone seemed pretty happy. I don't think anyone got lost on the way here.
We board at about 8:30 tonight, and we'll reach Crete in the morning around about 6 o'clock.
And so we've got about 4 or 5 hours before we get on the ferry, but Bev's up there at the window and it looks like it's going to take her 4 or 5 hours to sort out the bookings and payment. It's a bit of a shambles, the booking system here. You'd think it would be easier because they do this every day, but I think 15 vehicles from Australia is really causing a bit of a problem to the poor old booking clerk.
What are we meant to have?
472.
70.
Done. We go straight ahead.
Crete was very interesting, really quite different landscapes. I photographed the traditional old ladies in the black that spoke the old Greek. All we could do for communication was sign language and facial expressions.
Well, we've just stopped beside the road to have a cook-up, some sausages, tomato and some rolls. Beautiful in the countryside here.
I wanted to go to Crete. I've been there several times before, but I wanted to follow the Battle of the Airfields, which Crete was the Battle of the Airfields. And it was a disastrous campaign, poorly led once again. It was a case of the First World War all over again, lions led by donkeys. And there were some terrible decisions made by command which allowed the much smaller, more lightly equipped German force to capture one of the airfields. And once one of the airfields had gone, of course the Germans could bring in their heavy ground troops, and that was the end of the story for the defenders, because the defenders had been pushed out of Greece, went to Crete, established defensive positions around the airfields, and unfortunately at Malema, where the Kiwis were, the Kiwis fought tremendously, but they had a couple of commanders there who were just, no other word for it, but incompetent. And they allowed the Germans to get in behind, and then even though they had the resources to counterattack, they did nothing. And the poor old Kiwis were chewed up piecemeal because of absolute bad leadership. And once that airfield fell, well, everything fell.
This is the airfield used by the Allies and subsequently captured by the Germans in May 1941. Over 4,700 Germans buried in the cemetery above us.
This is the German war graves. Most of these graves here are 1941. This is what they called Hill 107 airfield the Germans took very early in the war. There's a lot of soldiers buried here. The locals have found quite a lot of stuff still in the area. Aircraft parts and of course weaponry lying strewn around everywhere. It's quite amazing. It's just a new museum they're setting up here, and a lot of the local people are bringing in stuff that they had for many, many years, found in their fields.
At Suda Bay Cemetery is the grave of my grandfather's first cousin, Alexander McPhee. And we were able to lay some flowers on Alexander's grave, which was very moving for me because I think I'm the only one of the Brown family and the McPhee descendant who has actually visited Crete and been able to place some flowers on his grave.
On the retreat from Crete, this is the gorge that the Allies came down. Just look at the steepness of it, the narrowness of it, the difficulties they must have incurred down to the beach where they were evacuated.
Withdrawal began towards Sfakia on the southern coast. 7 miles from the beach over a narrow road.
The reason we're here is that this is where the evacuations took place, and thousands of troops were lifted out of this little port behind me here. Unfortunately, thousands of troops were left here because the ships just couldn't get them off in time before the Germans arrived.
I was 13 years old.
Yes.
My house is right here. And they passed by all the groups, English, New Zealand, Australia, from Greece. They come right here to this village.
Yes.
Now, 5 nights, they come in, the destroyers from Tobruk, right here. 5 nights on the road, pick up the soldiers.
Yes.
They not had much time to take everybody because I think it was over 32,000.
Were you watching all this happening?
I see everything. I was right there. Matter of fact, I had boat.
You had a...
I had boat, and they tell me to take my boat, to take the soldiers, to put on destroyers, and they gonna pay me. I said, no, thank you. I was young boy, and yes. I scared to death. You know, I scared. When I talk about these things, I started get
emotional.
Different.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
because there's so many people they kill here.
Oh, yes.
I got them Stukas, they come at 200 feet, they with the machine guns. The English, the Australia, New Zealand people raise their hands. They come at 200 feet with the machine guns. The Germans, they catch 6,000.
When we arrived here, we found this memorial to the British, Australian and New Zealand soldiers, this being the evacuation point. And unfortunately, the flagpoles were in a little bit of disrepair, so I went into town and talked to someone in a baker's shop who's the mayor's cousin. Like everyone else in town, is also the mayor's cousin. And within about 10 minutes, the workers were down here. They had new ropes on the poles. They had the flags from all the nations involved. And we've got a wonderful display here. So it's a very fitting end to our journey right across Crete, following all the battles to the final place where all the troops were lifted off. At Patra, we all lined up on the wharf, and once again we had some excitement there because there are a lot of illegal immigrants coming there. Dave Mottram was driving on the road and a couple leapt into the back of his vehicle.
And motorists going past started shouting and pointing at the truck, and we thought there was something wrong with the truck, so we pulled over and jumped out, and Maggie ran back down the left-hand side, I ran back down the right-hand side. We looked in the back and there's a fella laying down on the floor of the tray. So we got him out and we took off again, and a fella ran up behind, tried to jump in the back, and I couldn't outpace him because we were in traffic. So I thought the best thing to do was to hit the brakes, and he bounced off the tailgate, left a couple of handprints and went off holding his nose.
The Coast Guard guy came to my window as we were going on the ferry and said, there's a person in the back. And I said, oh, no, there's no person in the back here. And he said, yes, there is. So he hopped out the back, opened the flap, and he shone the torch in, and there underneath my blankets was a foot. The most amazing thing, because everyone was around the vehicles when they were parked there. This guy must have been the Phantom. And they found a young Iranian guy in the back trying to smuggle himself into Italy.
Here we are, arrived in Italy, our first sighting of Italy. Looks very similar to where we just come from. So where are we now, Tony?
I wouldn't have a clue, mate.
You wouldn't have a clue? What country are we in?
We're in Italy, I think.
We're in Italy.
Yeah, awesome, man, awesome.
Turkey and Greece is behind us, Italy and France, here we come.
Here we come, yeah. We're looking forward to it.
Most of the vehicles are running extremely well. There's some minor maintenance being done, obviously, on 60-year-old vehicles, but everybody's quite happy.
Okay, give it a go.
We had a brake line leaking on the back.
I had a spark plug lead come off and we run on 7 cylinders for a while.
Again. Running with pound the door. Better?
We've just had a heap of rain come through, so it's taken about 2 hours to do a 10-minute job.
Here's Nigel. He's just found a bolt missing out of his generator.
The brakes are worse. We tried the talcum powder thing and sandpaper, and now we've got a grinder, and as you saw before, the grinder blew up.
are we, Graham?
Yeah, 1375 metres above sea level at this point. We've just climbed 10 kilometres up a very steep and obviously a very hairpinny road.
Probably more like 10 mile than 10 kilometres, I think.
10 miles sounds better than 10 kilometres. Yeah, let's call it 10 miles.
And at one point, going around a corner, we lost the tailpipe off the muffler.
Oh, that would have been...
No, it actually got quiet.
Did it get quiet?
It's the 25th anniversary of the club.
After a wonderful dinner last night with the Italian Fiat Club, the Jeep just continually played up all day. We think we fixed it.
I think it was about 3 days prior to going on the Simplon Pass, we were alerted that there was snowfall and it could be blocked. So we took our chances and drove the Simplon Pass. And once you've reached the top, it's like you're standing on the top of the world. Our Blitz had overheating problems, so I've got shots of Nige with his shovel scooping up the snow on the side of the road and dumping it on the radiator just to keep the engine temperature down.
Here we are, just another lunch stop by the river. A lot of snow melting, so the river's running quite well.
So from Simplon Pass, we arrived at Furka Pass. This is a pass that wasn't open for driving. We had to take a vehicle train. So we drove our vehicles onto this train, and in pure darkness, you go through this tunnel that takes you out to the other side of Furka Pass in Switzerland. Within minutes, you're out the other side. You just drive off and off you go.
Convoys steamed through the English Channel. The landing craft crammed with soldiers, tough and hardened fighting men. The mighty armada as seen from above is a weaving pattern of ships. Those 4,000 ships as they steam for the coast of Normandy. This is the greatest amphibious operation in military history.
It's actually quite shallow, so they had a lot of flat-bottom landing craft, and that's why they did it, because I think they knew no matter where they went on the French coast, they had to land on less on a high tide, and that's why they built the Mulberry Harbours, to get out several hundred yards into deeper water and then have their ships pull up to that. And obviously, if you land in low tide, your soldiers have got a lot more area to run. I mean, they'd have deeper water, but could have several hundred metres they've got to face enemy gunfire, so not good either. In a few cases, the captains of the boats were getting the wobblies and opening the drawbridge and sending these tanks off, and they were just dropping a couple of 100 feet into the water because they were dropping 7 miles out. And apparently a commanding officer of the actual tank squadron or group raced up onto the bridge and put a pistol or revolver to this captain's head and made him take his ship in more, because this guy just, he freaked out. Instead of dropping him off 2 miles, they dropped him 7.
We were all set for the go, 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 and they took us in, but they didn't take us in far enough. Down goes the ramp, officer shouts, "Come on, jump to it." So off come your rifle, on goes a folding bike on my shoulder. I'd never been trained to fire a rifle with a bike on my shoulder in Brecon. So down we go with the bike, then your rifle on, and then you start to go down and down and down. And there's a little man in front of me, a smithy, and going down, and his pack disappears, and we're holding onto this rope, this guide rope, and then his pack goes, disappears, then his helmet, and his helmet disappears, and he's underwater. And I thought, good God, he's going to die. So I grabbed him by the collar of his battle dress blouse, and I pulled him up, you see. Then, of course, we were still going down. The water's up over my pouches. We're still going down. So this is it, my last breath. Now, how long I was underwater, when I left Smithy Go, I don't know, no idea. How the hell I got to the beach, I'll never know.
As the landing craft touched the sand, and we started jumping out, and at that very moment I just jumped out, a wave came up and lifted up the boat, you see, and I could easily have been sort of, the boat could have just gone over me, you see, but the infantry officer was next to me, sort of yanked me up, and I was saved a very inglorious death.
And we ran up the beach, the bit of beach that was left. We got up onto the road, and then I leaned over the bike, and I started to undo the wing nuts. "Evans, give that bike to my Batman." Oh, and I was dreaming. 3 minutes, I'd have been up in the woods with the bike.
We'd landed at 7 o'clock, and it was about 10 o'clock, I understand, when we actually finally left the beach. So we were pinned down for all that time.
This was an RAAF airfield. This is where the Australians flew out of during the war, I believe. They set up airfields pretty much on the run, and they were just knocking down grapevines and whatever. Any open paddock was an airfield. As you can see, the approach here is quite flat, so there's no town, so this would have been ideal for a landing up on that flat country there. My uncle may have flown out of here in the Typhoons. He flew Spitfires over here also, but predominantly went on to Typhoons, and they were strafing the retreating Germans, shooting up the retreating armour. They had to stop it getting back to Berlin. And of course, backing up troop movements too. When they got bogged down, the Typhoons would come in. But he also talked about shooting up trains. He said, amongst the squadron, he said that was a highlight. He said, when you hit a train, he said the only thing was, once you hit the locomotives, if it was full of steam, he said it would go up to 2,000 feet and shrapnel and whatever, he said. And it did kill some of the pilots too, but he said they had to, in the end they worked out a technique, and he said that was a highlight.
Rocket firing typhoons, yes. I remember them. We were up on a ridge, dug in, and we were all lying there, looking down into this wood. And the German tanks were down there refueling. And these typhoons, these rocket firing typhoons, right about, whoa, frightened the life out of us. And then you see the bombs going, and choo, German tanks going up. Oh, good God.
My uncle, he went back to Australia and after the war, and he was very, very drained. He was repatriated into hospitals for a while. It was incredibly stressing because they were shooting a lot of civilians.
Knowing they were?
Knowing they were. They were on the tanks. The Germans would go into the little villages, pull all the people out of it, women and children predominantly, he said, and because they'd mostly killed all the men. And that's what he said, and put them on the tanks and the armour, and of course the soldiers then hid in the ditches. But he said they weren't really after the troops, they were after the armour, and he said it was just, you know, incredibly horrible.
We're finally here, and it's just in time for the big day, for the big finale, the anniversary of D-Day. I just can't wait to be there.
That's our thing, souvenir from here.
Very much.
Thank you.
A brand new carburetor for a Dodge. Brand new. Amazing, still around.
Well, I think the military history matters a lot. A lot of people are interested in what the vehicles did. A lot of people are interested in what the soldiers did. A lot of people are interested in the politics of the period. Everybody's different. There's no one person. You can see when you go to these events, there are people that get fully dressed up in the 1940s outfits, absolutely right down to the last button. And then there are other people like me who think that you shouldn't be wearing a uniform unless you're actually on active service. So there's the whole spectrum of enthusiasts in recreating the military.
There was one guy there wearing American uniform. I think he was Belgium or Dutch or something. He's probably mid-60s, grey beard, full American Army battle dress, a Marine battle dress. And the guy he was talking to besides, probably about 30, 35, full Marine battle dress with a big earring hanging out of his ear. It's just ironic. For me, some of these people want to dress up and resemble these soldiers, but they're 65 with a beard. Shave the beard off. Take the earring out if you want to do it. Otherwise, do it all or don't do it.
Starter for GMC, 6 volt.
6 volt, yes.
Du Solier, French Army.
Right, okay, lovely.
News.
Brand new? Yeah. And it turns here, this, yep, that's lovely.
The whole adventure of leaving Australia is, of course, culminating tomorrow, the 6th of June, the landing. We want to be on the beach for the memorable event. So we're going to do the 10 o'clock convoy, and the aim is to get to Arromanches and get onto the beach somewhere around 2 to 3 o'clock.
I had no idea it was going to be like this. What do you reckon, Mick?
It's really worth the effort, and I'm just so pleased to be here. Look at it.
Coming onto the beaches here at Normandy, it's just absolutely amazing.
Driving on the beaches in Normandy on D-Day I think I was really touched by that experience because not too many people would get that opportunity, and we were blessed with that.
It's so emotional, we can't really be jubilant about it.
Very surreal. Driving on the beach on D-Day was one of the few things that very few people get to do.
This is just amazing. We've travelled the 5,000 kilometres, we've camped every night in a different spot. This is great.
We're just down there in the lineup. It was great driving up the beach this morning with other vehicles. In fact, I just heard someone say behind me before that the military vehicles, the old restored vehicles, are keeping it alive, making the whole show here. To be quite honest, I feel very privileged to be on the beach. Quite amazing. After the trip we've done through Europe and down through France, it's hallowed ground. It's quite an honour to stand on the beach where men and of course later women came ashore to get a foothold in Europe, to retain Europe. I think it's quite amazing.
Everyone's having a lot of fun. Even though there's a bit of a language barrier, the people seem to be able to communicate and get on. And also with the being Australian and coming and they're finding out how far we've come and actually brought the vehicles over, they find it hard to believe, and it's good to get the reception that we've got. But actually being here with your own vehicle on the day, it's just very hard to describe the feeling. It's hard to believe. Probably think of it in years to come and think, you know, you actually did get there and made the effort.
I think what is amazing is President Obama, of course, is visiting. He will be on Omaha, and it will certainly add a lot more to the atmosphere to have an American president here in an official capacity.
I'm not the first American president to come and mark this anniversary, and I likely will not be the last. So when the ships landed here at Omaha, many never made it out of the boats. And yet, one by one, the Allied forces made their way to shore. And by the end of the day, against all odds, the ground on which we stand was free once more.
I just thought there'd be a nice culmination of the trip to have a ceremony that was representative of all the places we've been to, not just Normandy. And this is the most logical place to have it, is at this memorial here. We were here 5 years ago when the Australian Prime Minister and the New Zealand Prime Minister opened this brand new memorial. And even though the names on the plaque here indicate there are many, many more English than Australians and New Zealanders who died in the typhoons during this period, the Australians and New Zealanders continued to fly typhoons, and many more Australian and New Zealand pilots were lost later in the war in those particular aircraft. They shall grow not old as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget.
Not many people get to restore a vehicle and put it in a shipping container and ship it halfway across the world and drive 5,000 kilometres, and it's probably weird. I think it's probably really hasn't struck home yet what we've done. I think when we get home and start looking at the photos and so forth, and sort of look at what we've done, I think it'll really hit home.